Okay, boys and girls, today we are going to be talking about adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Unlike denominators is when the denominators are different to start. So get out your notes, open up that first top left flap that says add/subtract on it, open that up. You'll notice that I have already written all of the steps out for you, so you just need to follow along, paying attention, and writing down the examples with me. Now, when our denominators aren't the same, we need to do a step before we can do any adding or subtracting. So I need to change my unlike denominators to have a common denominator first. That's kind of like what we did in that example in class today, where we had the different people's land and we had to kind of divide them all up so they all had equal size boxes inside. That way they all had a common amount that we could compare them with. So when I look at 1/5 and 1/4, I need to figure out, well, what's the denominator I can turn both 5 and 4 into? So basically, what are multiples of 5, what are multiples of 4, and what's the first one that they both share? So I'm hoping in your head you're thinking aloud, 20. So what I would do is I would find a common denominator of 1/5 and 1/4, and how many over 20 those both would be. So when we're doing things like that, that's going to be something actually called the LCD. Does anybody have any guesses what the LCD is? Hopefully in your head you're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. So let's think about what we know. The LCD is going to actually be the least common denominator. Because what I want to do is I want to find, well, what's the smallest number I can make both my denominators. So it's going to be like the least common multiple that we learned about. But now I'm going to be looking at my denominators to figure out what is the least common multiple of both of those. That's going to be my common denominator. So when we're adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, we're going to have a couple of steps. Now I think on your notes packet, I broke this down into 5 steps. I just have it in 4 because I combined 2 steps together. So the numbers will be a little bit different, but the message will be the same. So let's write down the example of 1/4 plus 1/3 where it says example. So write down 1/4 plus 1/3 on your paper. What we're going to do is step 1 says change to a common denominator. So I need to figure out, well, what's something I can make both 4 and 3 into. Well, I know I can make 4 into 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 to name a couple. I know I can make 3 into 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15 to name a couple. It looks like 12 is the smallest thing. I can make both of them. So we are going to find a common denominator of 12. So we want to make both our fractions share a common denominator. So we learned this a little bit last chapter, but how do I turn a 4 into a 12? Well, 4 times 3 equals 12, so I'm going to multiply the left fraction top and bottom by 3, because again, that's how I get my denominator to equal 12. So 1/4 becomes 3/12. On the right side, I need to turn a 3 into a 12 now, so 3 times 4 equals 12, so I'm going to multiply the top and bottom both by 4. So 1/3 equals 4/12. So now that my denominators are the same, I'm hoping that you see this is like a problem, kind of like what we were doing on those maps today. So step 2, and on your note, step 3 too as well, technically, says add or subtract the numerator. You keep the denominators the same. I all of a sudden will not have 24 pieces of something. I still just have 12 of everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 plus 4 equals 7. My denominator stays 12. I do not do anything with my denominator. Step 3 says add or subtract any whole numbers. Well, in this problem, I don't have any whole numbers, so I don't actually have to do that step. But if there was numbers out in front of my fractions, those whole numbers, I would now add or subtract them together. And finally, step 4 on your note, step 5, simplify if possible. So I always want to look to see if I can simplify my fractions. So when I look at 7/12, I can't simplify 7/12 down, which means I know I'm done with that problem. So I hope you follow along and wrote that example with me. What I want us to do right now is I want us to practice one more subtraction one. So on your paper, let's write down 3 and, what numbers do I want to use? 3 and 5/6 minus 1 and 1/8. So step 1 says I need to find a common denominator. So when I look at both 6 and 8, I need to figure out what's the lowest number I can turn both 6 and 8 into. And it's not going to be 2, because remember, not going to make my number smaller. I'm going to find a multiple, so it has to be a bigger number. Well, I can turn 6 into 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. I can turn 8 into 8, 16, 24. Oh wait, I already said 24, so it sounds like 24 is the smallest thing for both. So let's, after we wrote down that problem, let's now write down we want our denominators to become 24s. How do I turn a 6 into 24? Well, 6 times 4 equals 24, so I'm going to multiply 5, 6 times 4. So 5, 6 is 20 24s. 8 times 3 is 24, so I'm going to multiply the top by 3 as well, so I get 3 24s. Now I have those whole numbers this time, so I have to write those down as well. So now that my denominators are the same, I subtract my numerators, so 20 minus 3 is 17. I keep my denominator 24. I can't all of a sudden have 48 of something or 0 of something. I started with 24 pieces total. I'm going to stay with 24 pieces total. Now this time I have to subtract my whole numbers as well. So I need to do 3 minus 1 is 2. When I look at 17 and 24, there's nothing I can divide 17 and 24 by, so I do not have to simplify. We're going to practice this a lot in class tomorrow, so get ready for that for Wednesday's class. See you in class.